be your trainer for Informatica, and I hope everybody is from somewhere or the other related to IT, and you've been working on some of the other technologies. So this being a demo session, I'll give you a background of what data warehousing is altogether, and Informatica as such comes in what level, and why is it so famous, why do we have so many job opportunities, and we'll see what all topics we will be covered over the period of time as after you enroll your course, and how it will be dealt with practical scenarios. I'll also show you an example on the tool on how it looks for those who have not seen it yet. And for those who are already aware of the data warehousing concepts, Informatica, and the basics of it, it might be a repeat for you, but considering everybody in the group to be aware of it, I'll do that. Once we start the course, we have a plan. We'll follow that plan as per schedule and on the daily basis. Okay. So as you can see on the slide, it says data integration and ETL. What is data integration here? Well, in usual meaning of integration is combining something or making things on a streamline to have something at that point. Let's say you have two different things, you're integrating both of them, mixing both of them, or combining both of them to get an output. Okay, that is integration. Now, why do we have to go for data integration? Let's take a simple example of a bank. Okay, if you take a bank, for example, Swiss Bank, this bank is available or it is operational from let's say past 150 years or close to 200 years with whatever names. Okay, now the data which was maintained 10 years ago and the data which they have to maintain now, the requirements have changed drastically. Earlier, it was only the bank's decision on how they want to store the data. Now, with all the globalization in place, they have some compliance rules which are set globally and within their country specific rules which they have to follow. Now, following those or applying those compliance rules by doing it manually, let's say on books or on all papers or accounting stuff and all that, is very hard, and they need huge man-force to do that. So they have to come up with something which would make things faster so that it will right away replicate the changes to the users. Simple example is the forex rates or your equities. Okay, the moment something gets updated at your exchange, let's say IBM shares, it is reduced by $2. The moment the change affects there, it should affect all the other portfolios whoever have IBM as their equity. Okay, it should be so drastic or so real time. Now all that can be handled with the tools we have, especially the ETL tools. Okay, so we'll see the basics of what data integration is in place in the first place, and then go with the ETL tools which are present, why Informatica and all that. Please hold on to your questions till the end. I know this would be basic for some people, some of you, but like I said, as everybody should be aware of what this is all about, I would go through this. So what do we do over this? It'll be like understanding what data integration is all about, data warehouse is all about, why do we have to build data warehouse, and what ETL is, what does a source mean, what is a target, what is a transformation. Now ETL is nothing but source, transformation, and target. E is extract, which is extracting from the source. L is loading, which is nothing but your loading to your target. T is your transformation. Okay, so the data which you read from your source is transformed using some business logic and stored into your target. That is ETL. In other words, extraction, transformation, and load. Okay, we'll see that in detail now. So what is data integration in the first place? Leave about this, look at the diagram. In a bank, you have three divisions: investment banking, customer loans, and credit cards. Or, sorry, the personal banking. Customer savings is personal banking, right? So personal banking, loans, and credit cards. Now, end of it, though there are n number of products in a bank, okay, you have one data warehouse to store all that data into your system. Okay, data warehouse here is nothing but a database, okay, where all of your content is stored in the form of tables, rows and columns, okay, for easy retrieval. After this, once the data is present in your data warehouse or the database, target database, that's when your reporting layer comes into picture, and they start analyzing all your data warehouse data, which has historical information, current information, and all the information related to your customers, the way the number of loans have been increased, or the number of or the percentage of interest which the bank is earning, or the number of new credit cards which have been going, what is the charges for that. All those will be taken from your database and created reports. Now what will people do with those reports? Those reports will be analyzed by the business or the business analysts who are at the top level. These are the decision makers. They see the data and see if they have to change their strategies. For example, let's say they created a credit card called Titanium credit card, okay, and they wanted to target their own customers who have been paying well or who have a good credit score. Okay, they try to market that using their emails, telephone messages, or calling them, and all this criteria. It was not so fruitful as they were expected. So now they have to take a decision if they have to change their strategy of marketing or change the group of customers altogether, because somebody who is really paying it on time might not be interested to take something extra which he might not pay. Okay, so there can be two decisions now. One, change the marketing strategy. Two, change your customer group, or both, or any new strategy as such. So all that decisions come based on the data you see in your warehouse system. Okay. Now let's talk about these three. In any company, or let's say in any bank, the employee who works on one area would not be working on the other. Though they have information on how things work, they wouldn't completely be aware of what will happen. So, but end of it, there is a customer. Let's say I am the customer. I have the savings account with the same bank. I have a loan as well, and I have the credit card as well. Now, so with one customer ID, they have to maintain all of these strategies. Okay, with one customer ID, I have to maintain all of these data which should be present in the data warehouse system, right? So whenever the personal banking system is happening, let's say I went to the ATM, drawn some money. Okay, now that transaction should go into my first part, which is my customer savings. Now end of the month or beginning of the month, I paid a loan, let's say car loan, that will be my customer loans. Now over the month, I use credit card for various reasons. So all these are different kinds of sources which will be combined together in the ETL part. When I say combined, that is nothing but integration. Okay, now this integration is happening based on the customer ID. So end of it, I can always come up with the detail from my data warehouse or the database to see for each customer ID, how much has the bank earned, or how much has the customer been benefited by the bank, and what are the charges for that. Okay, that is the usual flow. So data integration is to integrate the data from various sources. Now this can be anything. Let's say the customer savings account, there might be multiple transactions over a month, so I can make it as a relational. Customer loans, this is only one-time transaction. Let's say the loan is approved, you will be paying only it monthly, right? So I don't need a huge setup for having it on a relational basis, so I maintain that in an Excel. Credit card transactions can be anytime, anywhere, so I maintain it relational. So it is not that all of your sources come from the same source systems. It can be different, it can be the same as well. Now if you're making, or if your customer base is huge, then we can make everything onto a single streamline technology so that everything would be on the same platform. If it is something new or different, then you can put it in your own way of handling it. Okay. Now the various source systems concept usually comes when you go for a merger or an acquisition. Let's say Walmart, they are planning to extend their business to various countries globally. Okay. Now for some of the countries, they want to overtake an existing retail outlet so that they can set up their outlets faster and start working on the branding. Okay, for some they might have to start from the scratch. Let's forget about starting from the scratch, because they have to set it up and everything can be on the single platform. Now let's say they have acquired some retail outlet chain of that local country. Now when they acquire that, they include their IT systems as well. Now this IT system, let's call it as more. Okay, this IT system is different from what Walmart is handling. So Walmart's decision is to have their existing IT system as is and then convert it to Walmart's IT platform slowly. In those cases, you'll have different kinds of source systems at every level. Now all those should be integrated as part of your ETL logic and then load it into a single format into your data warehouse. That is your relational format. Okay, like I said, once your data is there in your warehouse, then we do various reports for analysis, monthly statements and things like that, and then that'll be the next step of analysis of data, and then coming up with business strategies, finding out if we were in profit or loss with the current strategy which is happening, what kind of changes we should have. Did our forecast work properly? What is the forecast value? Do we have to change the strategies and things like that? Okay. So that was data integration. Now let's see what's ETL. Like I said, E is for extraction, T is for transform, and L is for load. Okay. Extracting data from various source systems, transforming the extracted data with the business logic, and loading it into the target is your ETL. Okay, so moving data from one system to another or one database to another is ETL. Okay, in data warehousing terms, the ETL part is data integration, where the data is moved from transaction systems to your operational data. So what is transaction systems here? Transaction systems is nothing but your OLTP systems. OLTP is online transaction processing. Let's say you went to Walmart, you bought something. When you go to the bill desk, the executive will take it, scan the barcode, and gives you the bill. Okay, all that information for the complete day is transaction system, because each transaction will be recorded. end of the day, the transaction data will be moved to OLAP, which is Online Analytical Process or Operational Data Store, ODS. What is ODS? ODS is nothing but a pre-data warehouse stage where you store your OLTP data for a limited period of time. Okay, if you want to maintain the history of it, then you have to move it to the data warehouse. So that is the reason we mention data warehouse, data marts, or operational data sources. Now, which one is better, or which one should we go for? What is the usual best practice? All that is depending on the volumes of data you have and the design which we are setting up to handle our data. Right now, in the extraction part, E, you can see simply on how data is being extracted. Everybody knows this. Select star from a table will extract the data for you. Once you select that data, it will be transformed. How is it transformed? These are the examples. Let's say you want to convert a date. You can use these functions. Whatever functions you see in Informatica, most of them are from your RDBMS. Okay, obviously because the data which is coming from one system and moving to another should be converted, and as you have already functions enabled, those functions would be present in Informatica. Apart from those, whatever are required, Informatica has created them as new functions, and you have all of those which are present in Informatica as well. So more than your RDBMS functions, you have Informatica functions which are more specific to a scenario. Okay, that's one of the transformations which we can use. The other is joining tables. Now, your different kinds of sources can be anything. Let's say we took a flat file and an Oracle table. Now, if I have to join both of them, here joining is of two types. Okay, joins within the table. You have 4 joins: equi join, outer join, left outer join, and full outer join. Okay, that is one. The other one is joining your heterogeneous sources. Heterogeneous sources is nothing but your different kinds of sources. Okay, it can be your Oracle, flat file, XML, COBOL, anything. You can join any of these sources into one using a transformation called joiner, and then load it into your relational data warehouse. Filtering records, obviously we can use the where clause. Merging records using union or union all statements. And obviously aggregates should be present, because after the data warehouse we are doing the reporting, and if I want to see what is the total amount of sale which I have done today, obviously I have to aggregate it. So that goes for the aggregate option. Let's say what is the product which has sold maximum today, so I have to use max. What is the product which has sold minimum? We have to use min there. Okay, so all those aggregate functions are also used in your transformation logic. Now these are the basic things which we usually do in the ETL process within any ETL tool. Okay, but what are the things which are different within Informatica? Within Informatica, you can handle various kinds of sources, which means unstructured data. Unstructured data is nothing but your Word documents, PDFs, and Excels. Okay, Excel is partly structured, but you can still consider that as an unstructured, because if you have data in multiple tabs, then we should have a technique in place which would read the data from individual tabs as well, right? So Informatica can read any of those and write to any of those. Also, it can read data from applications like SAP, PeopleSoft, TIBCO, Salesforce, any of these latest or the popular technologies in the market which are being used by most of the Fortune 500 companies. Also load them as to the targets. It is not always that you read data from a flat file or a relational data and load it only into relational. It can be anything from the source and can be anything at the target level. That is the reason we call it as an integration tool rather than a warehouse tool. Okay, so using Informatica for warehouse is one of the options, but integrating it between your two applications. Let's say A to Z is a whole process in a company. Now if I want to integrate data from, let's say, B to C, I can put Informatica in between and move data from B as the source and load it into C as the target. So I can use Informatica in various plugins or every connection between the applications. From A to B I can use it, B to C, C to D, till the Z. Okay. So after the transformation, we load the data into the database. So that target can be any kind, database, file, XML, applications, web services, anything it can be. Okay. Usually if you consider the data warehouse scenario, it will be either an insert, delete, or an update. We wouldn't do deletes, in a normal scenario or a data warehouse scenario, because one of the basic foundations of data warehouse is not to delete the data or maintain historical information, right? So we do not use delete much. If there is a situation where you have to use delete, we usually skip those records from your extraction layer itself before processing it into the database, and have some programs written at the database level to remove the data. A simple scenario or a real-time scenario here would be, let's say I don't need asset management data after 6 months because it is of no use. No users would ask data about it. So I can write an external step without Informatica to remove all the records or archive all the records which are older than 6 months. I can place that using a procedure Unix script, or I can do that using Informatica also. But most of the timings this is kept outside Informatica, because if it is kept as the database level, that can be run on a downtime. What is downtime? It can be over the weekend, or when the batch is not processing, or when the real-time data is not moving from one location to another, to avoid any misplacement of the records. Okay. Each company have their own strategies of doing this, but most of the timings it would be outside Informatica. One of the reasons would be, if you keep it on a procedural level, it will be faster because it will be done at the database level itself. But this decision is taken only if the volumes are high. Okay, if the volumes are normal or nominal, then you can place Informatica job to do it. Okay, you can insert or append the data into one or more files. This was for relational data, this was for tables. Okay, so front to back, an example. I read the data from an Oracle database and a SQL Server database. I apply the join based on the keys. Let's say the keys are not available. How do I apply the join? If the keys are not available, we have to combine two or more attributes from each database, with which we can consider an individual record as unique. Okay, that is called business key. Using that business key, we can join the data and insert that into the target database. Okay, now here this source can be anything. Like I said, we will see more about these, or what are the kinds of sources or targets which Informatica can handle when we are doing the architecture part. Okay. Yep, that's about the introduction of what it does. Let's go to the tool directly. We'll be dealing with the latest version, Informatica 9. It is 9.10. The earlier version was 9.01, and prior to that it was 8.6. The differences between 8.6 and 9 are more at the architectural level, and a couple of transformations have been included. I'll tell you what those transformations are. For those whom transformation is not clear yet, we'll see what that means. Okay, and Informatica tool is a GUI based tool. Okay, this tool is divided into 3 specific tools for doing the development. Why? This is for a simple reason that if you have a task to be done at a level, and if you have it separated, it will be easy for us to handle it. If you take a couple of ETL tools like ETL or BODS, everything is under the single tool. Okay, it's like too many options put into a single tool, where you might have chances to miss it. Okay, I'm not saying those are bad. I'm saying it is the preference of how the tool was handled. And for people who have worked directly on data stage or BODS, it might be easy for them that way. But dividing this in specific ways would help us to directly go find the issue whenever there is something wrong. For example, if the data is not being loaded properly, or if there is an issue with the record, then I can directly come and look at the specific tool to find out what that issue is. Okay, let's say if the database connection is wrong, then I can go to that specific level of tool to see what is happening. These are the only 2 tools where a developer would go and does his work. First one, R is nothing but your repository manager. M is your monitor. Like the name says, monitor is specifically to see what jobs have been running and what have been failed. Do I have to restart, and things like that. Okay, let's talk about designer. Designer is the one where we actually put the flow in place, the extraction, transformations, and then loading. Okay, let me connect to it. Okay, there are some things which you might not be able to grasp here, and I'm creating this for you to show the flow. Okay, once we start the actual course, everything will be dealt to you in detail, including your menu options, what are these icons, how are these tabs handled, what should you do, and all that. Okay, so I'll create a new flow now. Now that flow is called mapping. Okay, I'll tell you each of the objects. Underscore, let's call it as sample. So I gave the name as sample to my flow here, which is nothing but the mapping. Let's call it as mapping from now. Now let's do a simple task of reading the data from the table and loading it into the file. Alright, or we can do the other way. Now let's take table to flat file. Okay, table to flat file. If you take the ETL part here, I have to extract the data from the table and load it into my flat file. So Informatica should be able to connect to the database first for getting the data from the source system, right? So I go to a tab called Source Analyzer. This is the tab from which I can import or create any kind of source which can be read by Informatica. Notice the menu options here. Okay, I have sources now. I click on this, it becomes target, transformation, maplet, and mapping. Okay, so whenever you try to import the source from the database or create it manually, you have to click on the source analyzer, click on sources, and you get the whole list. Now, how do we import it from the database? You have a wizard for that. How do you import it from a file? You have a wizard, COBOL file, XML file. If you're connecting it to a TIBCO repository, which is nothing but an application, it is TIBCO repository, PeopleSoft. If you have SAP plugin as part of your Informatica license, you would have SAP as well there as one of the applications. WSDL is nothing but web services link. And if you're using any web service consumer, then you can define the web service definition here. Web service is nothing but your XML tag structure with which you can show that on the database. Okay. Import from Power Exchange. Now Power Exchange is another tool from Informatica which can make non-relational sources as relational sources for us to query them. Okay, Power Exchange is an Informatica tool which can make non-relational sources like COBOL, XML, any other non-relational sources as relational for us to query them as select star from so and so, put the where conditions, apply the join conditions and all that. Okay, that is Power Exchange. What is Salesforce? Salesforce is a website where within which you can save data, let's say of your efforts which the marketing team has spent across US or across the globe, and those can be read at the end of the day and then loaded into the employee database. Profiling. What is profiling? Profiling is before you read the data from your source, if you want to analyze how good is your data, how much percentage of it is good, how much percentage of it is valid, how much percentage of it is unique, how much percentage of it is non-unique. You can do all that here. Now, profiling here is limited. Okay, you do not have many options under the profiling. If you want to do a full-fledged profiling, Informatica has a tool called IDQ, Informatica Data Quality. This is the full-fledged tool and which is getting popular these days. This is the one where we can do full profiling, where you can get a scorecard of how much percentage of data is right, how much percentage of data is wrong, and you can filter them before coming to the ETL level. So it is a pre-ETL task. Same as with the Power Exchange. Okay. Now let's say if your source does not fall into any of these wizards or options which are given, you can create them manually. Okay, let's go with the option of importing it from database. This is the wizard I have. Now, for Informatica to connect to the database, there should be a connection. Okay, you should create that connection whenever you're doing it for the first time. So I click on this. This is nothing but opening the data source admin window for ODBC. I'm sure most of you would seen this because this is the usual window for configuring your connections. So I'll click on add. Okay, select the kind of database which you are creating. Okay, I'll select that. That is my database which I'm using, and I'll give a name to it. Let's say PISP underscore November. Okay, I'll give the same as description. My TNS service name is ORCL and user ID is Scott. Okay, before saying OK, I want to test it. So I'll click on test connection, for which it will ask me the password. Give the password. This should be this one, new ORCL. Okay, connection is successful. Now once you have that, this name would come in your drop down here. Okay, so that is the connection which I have created. I'll give the username password again and click on connect. Now what is happening here? With using this database connection, Informatica is trying to connect to the database whose services are up and running already and show me the content which is present under the schema called or the user ID called Scott. Okay, under that I have all these tables. Okay, I can select one or multiple tables from this. Okay, I select employee, or let me take EMP dummy and click OK. Okay, I can select multiple as well, and I can select various things, tables using the control key there. Okay, now this box is your source. Now when I said Informatica will connect to the database using the connection, it is grabbing or getting you only the metadata. You cannot see the data here. Let's say there are 100 records under this employee table. You cannot see all the 100 records here. You can see only the description of the table. Let's say you enter the database and type DESC EMP underscore dummy. This is what you will see. That is what is grabbed by Informatica. It is only the metadata. Okay. So these are the column names, data types, precisions, primary key, non-primary key, if it should be null, not null, and things like that. Okay. So I have my source now. Every step you do, you need to save it. So I'll click on repository, click on save, or Control S, both of those would work. This is saved, but my mapping is invalid, obviously, because I don't have anything yet. I just created my source. Now, as per our requirement, I have to load the data from the table into the flat file. So flat file is my target, so I should import the target, for which I should create it first. So I'll go to the target designer here, and you get the targets menu. When you click on it, you'll almost have the same kind of wizards which you have seen under your sources menu. Okay, there is nothing new here. Everything you have seen there is present here. So I'll click on import from file and go to the source file location where I have all my files. Okay, and select employee flat file. Okay, just click OK here. Now, as this is a flat file, I get this wizard. I'm sure you would have seen this wizard also, because this is the one which usually comes up when you try to import something into your XLS. In your Excel, you get the same thing like that. So now I know my flat file is delimited, so I select delimited. Now if I click on this import field names from the first line, my header will be gone and it will be considered as a column names. Okay, so I'll click on next here. The delimiter is not the comma, it is a pipe, so I'll click on other and click pipe here from the keyboard. Okay, there are no double quotes, or I don't want double quotes, so I'll click on no quotes. Now why do you have no quotes, single quotes, or double quotes? Let's say your first name and last name are two different columns, okay, or single column. So how would it be present? Sam, comma, Russell. Okay, this is my name, first name and last name combination. Let's say my file itself is a comma delimited file. This is my employee number, this is my employee name, and this is my salary, for example, and commission and department. Now if my file is a comma delimited file, okay, what will happen? The last name Russell is also considered as one of the columns, right? For that not to happen, I would put each of these fields into a single quote or a double quote. Whenever you put that input column into a single quote or a double quote, your delimiters within those quotes would not be considered. Those are ignored. Okay. If you have situations like this from your source system, then you would use quotes. If you do not have anything as such, like in this case, we do not have anything of those options because second field is my name and the third field is the job. So I can go with no quotes. And it is no harm if you put single quotes or double quotes. You can always see them or ignore them. Okay. Notice these two options. Treat consecutive delimiters as one. There are some systems which would send you delimiters twice. That is just it might be the limitation of the application which is giving you the file, or it might be a strategy to cover up something or add some other points including the data which they are sending. That can be any reason, but Informatica can handle if you have consecutive rows together or multiple delimiters as well. What are escape characters? For some of the files you'll get tilde sign or a cap. Okay, you can remove those spaces or escape characters if you're aware that it is coming. Now when I'm saying if you're aware, it is one of the duties for us to read the data sources clearly and understand what is happening. Else, you might get this situation after it goes into the production and we might not be able to handle it then. So it is always advisable to check with the data source provider or the business analyst to see if there are anything else or any usual scenarios which fall under these three options. And if they say no, that might not happen, then we are good, we can directly go there. Okay, so these are the column names which have come automatically. Click on finish. So this is my flat file. Okay, same thing applies here. No data. This is only the metadata based on the data which is present on the flat file system. Okay, now same step, repository, save. Okay, what did I do? I have imported my source and I have imported my target. Source is a database which is clearly distinguished here, which is Oracle, and flat file. This is a flat file, which is my target. Right? Now let's go to the mapping designer directly. The source and the target which I have imported have come here now. Okay, I'll click on the source folder. This is my database connection, VISP November. Drag. Okay. I'll just say click, hold, drag and drop into your mapping designer. Okay. The moment I do that, I get another box. I'll talk about it now. Let me go to the flat file, and which is the one which I have imported. Okay, let me take this. Sorry, that is again a source, so I'll delete it. I have to go to the targets folder now, and yes, this is the one. So same thing, click, hold, drag and drop. Then you'll get the source here. Now, we know this is the source, we know this is the target. What is this? This is the default transformation which Informatica will default move from your source to fulfill a basic rule of thumb within Informatica that a mapping should contain at least one source, at least one target, and at least one transformation. Now if you see in my requirement, it is only to load the data from Oracle table to flat file. I do not have any transformations here. I'm not checking if there is a space, null, or convert the date, or check if the record is null or whatever. I just want to load the data which is present in my table into the flat file. There is no T in the ETL. Okay, but as a rule of thumb, Informatica have to have a source, a transformation, and a target. That is the reason this comes up. Okay, now though you want it or not, this source qualifier transformation is to stay there in each mapping you want or each mapping you create. Okay, source qualifier transformation is the default transformation which will be created in each mapping for it to validate. Okay, now the links which you see are the ones which are passed like that. So you see the right arrowheads here, the black ones with the right arrowhead, which means this has output links. I is input, O is output. Okay, output. Now source qualifier has in and out. So if you see this, both of them have been checked. Now this being the target, it has only input. Obviously, this being the target, this will be the endpoint. There won't be anything further. So there are no outs. There are only ins. Now let me connect to each one of them. Okay, you can actually select one, click, hold, drag and drop, or as I know everything is the same, click on the first one, hold the shift key on the keyboard, click on the last one, which will do a multi-select, click, hold, drag and drop again. So everything is linked. Now when I say source qualifier transformation is the default transformation, it doesn't mean that it is dummy. It does not have any functionality. it does have some things which can be done right at this level. If you go see the properties, I can join data here, filter the data here, select only the distincts, do a pre-SQL or a post-SQL. Now these are all important features of a source qualifier transformation. I'll explain all of these in detail on how each property behaves in what kind of situations once we start it in a regular class. Okay, for now understand that this is mandatory and it should be part of my mapping for it to be valid. Now till now, whatever we did, we got invalid statements because these three were not there earlier. Now let me go to the mappings in the menu and click on validate. This is valid. Why was this invalid earlier? Mapping has no sources, mapping has no targets, mapping must have at least one loadable target. Okay, these were not there earlier. Now we have all of those, so it is valid. Okay, same process again, repository, save, and your mapping is present now. Now how do I actually run this? In the designer, we just put the flow. I have the flow where I extract the data from the database and put it in the flat file. Now for it to be executed, I need to create another object called workflow with tasks. You have two options. One, directly going there, going to the tool, which is this workflow manager, the orange color ball with a W on it, and create it. Or with the latest version, I have a wizard, so I can directly click on generate workflow, which I did. I'll talk about all these options. For now, just create it. Okay, next, finish. That is generated successfully. Now let's go to that tool and see how the workflow looks. Okay, I've clicked on it. As the folder is already open, it is showing me that folder. I'll go to the workflows and what was the name? Sample. So this is the one. So this is the workflow which got created automatically. Now how would I know if this is the same workflow? There are multiple of them. How would I know if this is the same one? Each name would be unique. Okay, if you use the same name again, there will be a number beside it saying sample 1, sample 2, sample 3. So it is always advisable to follow the naming standard, which I'll talk about in detail further. So for now, let's see what this is. Now all of this together is called a workflow. This alone is called a task. Okay, within this task I need to define the connection. If you remember, I've imported this data using the connection called BISP November, which is not present here, so I need to create that here as well. Relational, new, select the type of database. These are all one-time activities. Okay, as you're doing it for the first time, you're doing it. Once it is there, you can reuse this for multiple workflows. You don't have to do it every time. Okay, I give the password and the connection string is, click OK. This is the one. Close. Now I have to assign that connection to this database here. I'll click on this November. Forget about the rest of the options. There are too many of them. I'll talk about each of these later. Now where should my target file be? Okay, let me rename this so that we can identify it easily. emp underscore bisp underscore nov underscore 2012. Okay, let me click apply. Okay, same thing here. Repository in the menu, save. Okay, even this is valid. So right click, start workflow. Whenever I start a workflow, if the monitor is not already open, it will open it automatically and execute this. Like I said, monitor is the name given only to monitor the jobs. You can just see what is the status of the job, when it has started, when it has ended, how many number of records have been processed, Okay, SQ EMP dummy. SQ is my source qualifier, which is nothing but the source. So 10 records have been read and 10 records have been loaded. There are no rejected rows. Okay, no errors, no error codes. This is the throughput. Throughput is nothing but the fast or the speed through which the number of records have been processed. Anyways, now let's go see the data. Now my data is present here, which is this file. See this DSP number 2012. This is the file. We had the pipe delimiter and we have the data. Now if you notice, there is no header to it. Okay, you just have the data. Let's say I want to have the header also. In those cases, I have a property here under the targets header options, output field names, click OK, same thing again, repository, save, start workflow, it's running, succeeded, I'll reload it and you have the header. Okay, so this is the simplest step of loading your data from your database to the flat file. We can do it the other way also, and you can use various transformations to convert your data. Now let me just glimpse you to the list of transformations we have. These are the whole list of transformations which you can use for various purposes. Source qualifier is the first. We'll deal with most of them here. There are some things which are advanced, like web services, XML. We would not be able to do that because we need to have that set up, which we cannot do here because there should be some Tomcat services or the API services which should be running. As we cannot do all that here, those would be given to you on a brief note on how it works over there and what kind of questions you would get in interviews and how do you answer them. Okay. I am done with the demo. You can ask us if you have any questions.